lami ungabavumeli. Thabatha Nkosi ingilosi zakho uyithumele ukuthi lapho kubizeka khona igama lami Nkosi uhlakaze konke ukukhuluma. Ungisithe Nkosi ngaphansi komjiva wakho wasezulwini. Ungavumi ngami. Mina Nkosi ngingumntwana wakho. Ngazi ukudla mina Nkosi, ngazi la bonke bomnandi bomhlaba. Ngibiza igama lakho. Angani mangizela. Uzothi amen.
Amen.
Uhamba kahle bonke.
Amen.
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 The hit that took out most feared taxi boss. Chapter 1. Popular Soweto taxi boss Quinili Mkz Mkwanza assassinated. In August 2024, Soweto's streets were forever changed by the violent assassination of one of the most feared taxi bosses in the region, Quinili Mkz Mkwanza. He wasn't just a taxi boss, he was a symbol of power, fear, and control within the local transport industry. Mkwanza's name carried weight, and his reach extended far beyond just the taxis. He had influence over many facets of life in Soweto, both legal and illicit. His assassination on a quiet Sunday afternoon was an act that no one could have predicted, shaking the entire community to its core. People who had once respected him, feared him, or even worked for him, now had to grapple with his sudden absence. His death was a glaring sign of the violence that simmered beneath the surface of the city, always waiting to explode. Quinili Mkwanza's reputation wasn't built on kindness or fairness. He ruled the streets with an iron fist. His taxi empire was known for its aggressive tactics and his domination over competitors. For years, he had been untouchable, surrounded by loyal men and a network of individuals who feared his wrath. Yet, despite his power, he had made enemies, many enemies. Rival taxi owners, businesspeople, and even criminal figures who had crossed paths with him had reasons to want him gone. As his body lay in the morgue, it became clear that no one could escape the brutal forces of the underworld, no matter how powerful they seemed to be. Chapter 2. The Incident. On that fateful afternoon, everything seemed to be business as usual for Quinili Mkwanza. He was driving his Audi TT, a symbol of his success, through the vibrant streets of Soweto. But what appeared to be just another ordinary day for him would quickly turn into a life-ending nightmare. Mkwanza was cruising down Reverend Modis and Odendel roads in Meadowlands Zone 1 when the hit occurred. The assailants, waiting for the right moment, struck with precision. The first round of shots tore through the air, followed by several more, all aimed at the powerful taxi boss. Witnesses described the sudden eruption of gunfire that shattered the calm of the afternoon, leaving bystanders frozen in fear. The attack was swift and ruthless. The gunman, believed to be in a black sedan, opened fire on Mkwanza without hesitation. The sheer boldness of the operation took everyone by surprise. There was no warning, no hint that this would be the day Mkwanza's reign would end. As the gunman sped off into the distance, Mkwanza's Audi TT was left behind, riddled with bullet holes. Eyewitnesses who rushed to the scene were confronted with a horrifying sight. The influential taxi boss slumped in his seat, his blood staining the expensive leather of his car. He was still alive, but barely. Chapter 3. The Aftermath. As soon as the shooting took place, the entire area erupted into chaos. People screamed, some ran for cover, while others called for help. Mkwanza, badly wounded, was quickly rushed to the hospital, but his condition was critical. The journey to the hospital was a blur of flashing lights, sirens, and frantic attempts by medical staff to save his life. Despite their best efforts, Mkwanza succumbed to his injuries, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. His death, though tragic, was a stark reminder of the dangers that come with being a figure of such power. The loss of Quinili Mkwanza sent shockwaves throughout the entire community. The streets that had once buzzed with the hum of his influence now seemed eerily quiet. Those who had once feared him were left in stunned silence, unsure of how to proceed in the wake of such a violent act. The taxi industry, which he had controlled with a firm hand, now faced an uncertain future. Who would step into the void left by his death? And more importantly, who would seek revenge for the hit on one of the most powerful men in the city? Chapter 4. The Police Response. The response from the police came swiftly after the attack, but the situation was far from simple. Captain Masando, the spokesperson for the police, confirmed that Mkwanza had been the target of a drive-by shooting. However, the details of the investigation were sparse, and the authorities had little to go on. The crime scene, littered with evidence of the shooting, was sealed off as forensic teams worked to piece together the events of that afternoon. The car was riddled with bullets, and blood stains on the pavement told the tale of a man who had fought for his life until the very end. Despite the evidence, the police were left with no solid leads. There were no eyewitnesses who could provide a clear description of the gunman, and no one came forward with information that could lead to an arrest. The lack of cooperation from the public only fueled the mystery surrounding the hit. The police knew they were dealing with a highly organized attack, and they suspected that the people behind it were just as ruthless and calculating as Mkwanza had been in his prime. Still, with no arrests made and no suspects named, the case grew cold, leaving many to wonder if the killers would ever face justice. Chapter 5. The Attack. Captain Masando revealed that Mkwanza was struck by bullets while driving his Audi TT along Reverend Modis Road, a busy street that served as a hub for the locals. Witnesses recalled hearing the deafening crack of gunfire before seeing a black sedan speed away, disappearing into the maze of streets that made up Sawarito. One witness described the scene as a blur. "We heard the shots, and then we saw the car drive off. It all happened so fast." It was a clear indication that the killers knew exactly what they were doing. They were fast, precise, and ruthless. The boldness of the attack was remarkable. Mkwanza had been a man of great importance, and to attack him in broad daylight, on a busy street, took a level of audacity that spoke to the killer's confidence. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts. The gunmen had made up their minds, and they executed their plan with chilling efficiency. As soon as the shots rang out, they vanished, leaving only the wounded Mkwanza behind. The locals, already accustomed to violence in some form, were stunned by the open nature of the assassination. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong, it was a calculated hit. Chapter 6. Unanswered Questions. As the days passed, the community was left to grapple with the mystery of Mkwanza's murder. The motive behind his death remained unclear. Was it a hit ordered by a rival taxi boss seeking to take over his turf? Or was it a personal vendetta from someone with a long-standing grudge against the taxi mogul? The police, despite their efforts, couldn't provide any answers. Investigators continued to comb through the details of the attack, but every lead seemed to point in multiple directions, with no clear conclusion. Some whispered that Mkwanza's death was tied to the taxi wars that had plagued Sawarito for years. Rival factions within the transport industry had always clashed, and Mkwanza had been at the center of these disputes. His reputation for ruthlessness and his control over the local taxi routes meant he had made many enemies over the years. But even with these theories circulating, there was no concrete evidence linking his murder to any one group or individual. The lack of clarity made the situation all the more frustrating for both the community and the police. Chapter 7. The Aftermath and Theories. The aftermath of Mkwanza's assassination left the residents of Sawarito in a state of unease. The question on everyone's mind was who would rise to fill the power vacuum that had been left by his death. The taxi industry, once firmly under Mkwanza's control, was now in flux. Rival groups, some with connections to the criminal underworld, began to position themselves to take over his empire. His death had sent a shockwave through the community, and now, with the police unable to find any solid leads, many feared that a power struggle would erupt in the wake of his absence. But the bigger question remained: would Mkwanza's death mark the end of one chapter, or the beginning of another bloody conflict? Many believed that the hit was merely the beginning of a series of retaliatory strikes between rival factions. Theories about the murder continued to swirl, but no one knew for sure who was behind the assassination. Was it an organized crime syndicate looking to take control of the city's transportation routes, or a personal vendetta from someone who had suffered at Mkwanza's hands? For now, the answers remained out of reach, leaving the community in suspense.